All right, what this is going to be is just a review about my experience with the series so far, non-spoiler. I've prepared some thoughts about some spoiler stuff for Memories of Ice, with favorite characters and favorite scenes and an overall wrap-up. That'll be for a different video. What this video is meant to be is my experience going into this series and now finishing the third book of the series, and really why I think anyone should read this. Now, I say anyone, it probably won't be for everyone, but I think it will be for a lot more people than maybe what is how it kind of comes across. It has this infamous reputation of being this most complicated and convoluted sort of series, and there is some of that, but we'll just go into kind of that. Actually, addressing that point, when I was I was in the early 90s. I was a young kid in school, and I had older brothers and brother-in-laws. I was the last of 8 kids, and they were my older siblings, my older brothers and brother-in-laws. They were really into American football, to NFL football, and so I almost had no hope but to also be into NFL football, and I still am. But at that time, 1992 or whatever, playing Tecmo Bowl and whatever on Nintendo, when I would watch with them, I would feel their energy and like the excitement of what was going on, and I would look, and all I really understood was that people were making cool catches and running between people trying to get away. Very basic. There was enough for me to think, this is cool. I like this. And as I grew a little bit older, slowly I would start to know some more of the nuances and things like that, and I just got to love it more and more and more. I wasn't left in the dust at any point. Just the more I got into it, the more I liked it, and the more things I found to like about it. Now, on the inverse of that, well, it kind of seems like it would be the inverse. Watching Star Trek The Next Generation as a kid in 1992 or 93, whatever, couldn't have been more boring. But now going back to it with adult eyes, it's my favorite show. So some things you just love it right away. Some things you don't. Now I've peeked into, not peeked into. That makes it sound weird. I've stumbled across. Well, that makes it sound weird too. I don't understand bridal showers. I don't want to understand it. I don't get the energy. It is not for me. Okay, so going into Gardens of the Moon, the first book, I was having more of a NFL football in 1992 sort of thing. Bo Jackson and Barry Sanders, I knew they were cool, and I just wanted to be a part of it. Now, in this first book, I wouldn't be able to even tell you favorite characters that I connected with in an emotional sense. There's so many characters doing really cool things. And now after the fact, I am just dying to go back to this and see sort of, because there's characters that I have grown to love from this book, and I want to go back with fresh eyes and see that. But going into this first one, I think I was so worried about losing the plot that I was just holding on to all these different handholds, and I wasn't really able to really love it the same way as a lot of people love it on their reread. Now, I'm excited to go back, and I did love it, but mostly I loved it because there's some really cool parts. Apparently, this series kind of evolved from a Dungeons and Dragons group, I think. And you can kind of see that. You can see how there's lots of just cool moment-to-moment things that happen. Now, that's not all that is a part of this book, but that's kind of the experience that I had initially with it, and it was great. Now, I should say that when you read these books, you might have to read them kind of a little bit slower. Not slower because, well, you could read it quickly and just get the action and things like that, but there is a lot within the kind of in between the lines that happens, and that's where I think a lot of people just kind of get burnt out of the series. I don't know exactly why. Maybe if they're reading it too quickly or too slow. I don't know. But for me, who has a big TBR, I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that I'm going to have to slow down. Now, especially, I'll get to that. So with the second book took place on this other continent. It's still in the same world, but it's kind of happening at the same time as what's happening at Deadhouse Gates. Now, it took me until the last half of this book to finally really feel that emotional investment with some of these characters and to find out really what this series can be. Now, this third book, and this is really what I'm reviewing here, but really it's kind of a simple review. I loved it. And I have to go back into my Goodreads, other things that I gave a 5 out of 5, because I gave this a 5 out of 5, and I have to maybe reconsider some of my other 5 out of 5s, because this is one of my very favorite books I've ever read. Now, a reason for that is it meshed all the cool things that I already liked that I didn't understand necessarily, but I wanted to understand. And it also meshed theme. It made me really deeply invested with the characters, and I just loved it. People say that you have to at least read the first 3 books to understand if this series is really for you. And that's too bad. That's too bad if it is. I think I don't know if I totally agree with that, but I wish I would have had the same impact with book 1 as I did with book 3. It really is phenomenal. Now, one of the kind of writing styles that he has, and it's in other things, Steven Erikson will, at least in this third book, and that's what we're reviewing. In this third book, he really had a couple themes that he was kind of pushing across. And that theme was found in the villain. It was found within the heroes. It was found in a lot of the things that were going on. Now, a lot of the heroes were kind of having a similar experience. I call them heroes. I don't know if you would necessarily do that, but and I don't think necessarily they were having the same experience, but they certainly echoed. And I see Steven Erikson's writing as kind of cyclical, where in the first book there was just a lot I was holding on to, and in the first half, especially in the second book, I was just like, what the heck? Even though I was still enjoying it. With this third book, I didn't have that experience at all. By the third book, I finally felt like I was watching a football game and knowing what was going on. I didn't understand necessarily all the history of what was happening, but I understood the game, if that makes sense. Now, there are still mysteries and questions, but I was better at formulating the right answers. Now, this series isn't going to leave. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent. I will get back to my thought there. This series isn't going to leave you in the dust, if that's what you're worried about. if you don't understand everything from the first book, there are people to help with that. There are a couple things that I totally didn't get from the first book, but by the third book, in retrospect, that was clarified for me, and I didn't even know that I didn't know that thing. I just didn't really pay attention to it in the first book. But things build line upon line sort of thing, where it also kind of will go back and give you a little reminder or a little push in the right direction. It doesn't always do that, but it's pretty good with that. Now, what I was saying with this third book, he kind of writes in this cyclical way where this Memories of Ice term means something by the end of the book. He uses certain themes and terms like Memories of Ice. There's this term of embrace in the book, and he uses similar words to kind of cue you off that there are things that he's bringing up again. And it kind of turns on a switch that, hey, remember this last time we talked about this kind of word, and this is a weird way of saying it, but he just goes around and he'll say it once down here, and then there'll be all this neat stuff that happens, and then he'll come back to that theme, but he'll just kind of scoop a little bit more and bring you a little bit further along, and then you'll have some more cool stuff, and then just scoop it along, and all the way to the end of this book. And by the end of it, you understand this deeper thematic thing going on that he's trying to express. There are lots of cool things about this book as far as just the action. There are. If that's all you want to go into it with, there are things like that. But me, I'm not really a pure fantasy reader. I'm actually quite new to fantasy. I'm more of naturally like a literary classics sort of guy, so I can handle things going slower and some musings and things like that. And there's a lot of philosophical kind of musings. This is a very philosophical book and series. But whether you're going for the very cool things that happen, or you are looking more for just the quiet kind of moments that build on theme and make you really fall in love with character. Even though I love Star Trek, the big episodes with the Borg and all these big things going on, I love the filler episodes for the characters that are coming together. And in that way, in both of those ways, this is a 5 out of 5. Now, I got a little bit lost at the end. I felt a little bit like I was in Gardens of the Moon again for the last chapter. And that's not a bad thing. It just gives me more questions for the next book. I really loved it. I think if you are considering going into the series, what you need to know is there are a lot of characters. There's a lot of characters. Each of these books has this dramatis personae at the front, and there are hundreds of characters. Now, not in every book, but there's a lot. And I thought that would be too much for me to handle, and it really isn't. As long as you just kind of group them together and you know sort of where they are heading and the general motivation of every group, that should be enough to help you keep moving forward. Now, by the third book, yes, they are still going off in these groups, but more than ever, each of these characters really kind of leaps off the page and is not just a name in kind of in the larger group. They really get their own really well done and really, really deep and well told stories about each of them. I really, really think it's great. And again, I wish that I would have had the same experience with the first book as I did with the end of the second book and the third book, but that doesn't mean I didn't love the first two books on the way for the kind of the fun and the action and things like that. Now, I give the series so far a 10 out of 10. I've really loved it. I am looking so forward to getting to the rest of the series. I'm already in House of Chains. I have the next one. I don't have the next 5 after that, though, but really, really great. I think you should give the series a shot. And if you liked the first book and you weren't sure if this is just going to be too complicated for you, I would just say hold on. I'm not a genius. The people who read it, I don't think are geniuses. But I think the thing that if you think it's kind of interesting, but you don't understand it, you are in good company in the first book, especially. And just keep holding on, because by the third book, I think you will have no problem holding on to things that really make you love this third book. And I think you will be sold by then. Now, it's a hard thing to do, to tell people that to hold on for 2,000 pages. Just read the first 2,000 pages of the series and then decide. I think that's a little wild, but I think you should know right away if this sort of thing grabs you, and I think you should give it a try. And for those who want my spoiler discussion, I will be posting that shortly. Thanks.